The story, I want to talk about 3 Feet from Gold, because I love your story within that story. In the publishing industry, I understand you first kind of got kicked off and you were doing different type of works, but then you did with the Dr. was it Emoto?
Yes, Dr. Masaru Emoto.
And that was with the water crystals. You guys remember that book?
Yeah.
And that was the first big one that you published, right?
That was the first one that really took off in a big way. And it tracks with what Don was talking about. We are 70% water. And he was talking about how thought is creative, how thought manifests. And Dr. Emoto had a theory at the time that we published the book in 2004 that if you spoke to water, if you wrote words on little petri dishes and then froze the water, that the crystal that was formed when it was frozen would be different than it would be if you did nothing. And at the time it was just theory. And now the Institute of Noetic Sciences has duplicated the experiment that's been duplicated in Luxembourg, in Russia, all over the world. And at the same time, a movie came out. And the movie was called What the Bleep Do We Know? And I'm going to put one of these
into the box?
Into the box.
Into the tub of love! Yes!
When Mike was talking about 2003 being a pivotal year, 2003 is when they were filming What the Bleep Do We Know? When I went to see What the Bleep Do We Know, I thought, this is just a wonderful, wonderful movie, and then all of a sudden I saw Dr. Emoto's water crystal pictures, and I let out a yell, because I thought, we've just done a book, and now there's a movie to support it. So I then went back a month later and watched the movie again, and something really magical happened. There's a spot in the movie where a Native American shaman is talking about how he was looking out at the water in the bay, and he could see little waves lapping against something. But he didn't know what it was. And he thought about it for a couple days, and then he realized that they were Columbus's ships. His own people in his group could not see them either, but once he saw them, then they could see them. And I immediately thought, what if success wanted to happen to me? And I would push it out the door because it didn't look like what I'd been taught, what I'd learned in schools, what my parents had taught me. And it was at that moment that I recognized for the first time, and I was 1983, I would have been old. Older. How old was I? Was born in 44, so 39 years old.
Well, let me ask you this. What you're saying is that the moral is success could have been right in front of you, yet you chose not to see it.
Exactly. And we had a lot of struggle in our business by 2003.
Has anyone ever had any struggle in business? All right. What's going on alone?
So I went back and talked to my business partner, and I said, let's throw out all the models of success that we know. Let's just be open to success coming to us as an opportunity, and let's see what happens. A woman from Japan came to our company, and she didn't speak a word of English. She was an author that we were going to publish. And she said, through a translator, I have the ability to move energy in a room and in companies. And I've done this successfully in Japan when they had the mad cow scare. I kept 2 Kobe beef restaurants in business when all the others went out of business. And so I said, okay, go through our company and see what you can do. And she went through our warehouse, and she was kind of waving her hands around, and she came out and said, you know, call me in a few months, let me know what happens. Within 6 months, our business doubled. She came back the next year, our business went up 50% again. So
Can we get her to our house?
So if there's one thing I can share with you, and I hope I can share other things that are important, it is that beliefs, they're wonderful. Examine them, look at them, and be willing to change them. Be open to things happening. Nothing happens in a closed mind. So I allowed myself to be open to something as weird as throwing out everything I ever knew, and we started fresh, and success came.
That's amazing. Now, when the secret kind of literally fell on your doorstep, could you tell everyone the story behind that?
Well, the backstory is that I think the universe wanted us to do that film. And I invite each of you to enroll the universe in being your partner.
Wow.
So a man called me. He was a doctor who was involved in multi-level marketing. He sold weekend magnets. And if he was as close as I am to Greg, he would want to sell Greg something. And so we avoided him like the plague, because we had been sold a lot of things. So he called me. He said, "I just watched a movie called The Secret. I think you should really see it." And I said, "Oh, that's wonderful." And he called a week later. He said, "I'm getting in my car and bringing you this movie called The Secret." I said, "I'm getting in my car and I'm leaving the state." So I then got on an airplane and flew to New York to meet the company that was to become our publishing partner, Simon & Schuster. I got as far as Chicago. A snowstorm in New York stopped us, and I got in an elevator, and there was a woman who was just beside herself, and she said, I'm going to New York, and all my appointments are going to be canceled because of the snowstorm. I've worked on these for 6 months. And I said, "Well, when one door opens, another closes. Or when one door closes, another opens." And she said, well, she didn't want to hear that at all, actually. And so the next day, we wound up going standby for like 4 or 5 hours till we got to New York. And in the course of it, I said, I was thinking my former wife and I wanted to feng shui our house. And she said, "Oh, I know the perfect person for you. Her name is Marie Diamond." So and I heard, so some of you know. So Marie came to our house, feng shuied our house, and gave us a copy of The Secret, because she was in The Secret. And she said, "I hope you enjoyed the film." We watched it that night, and we said, "This has got to be a book. We need to see if we can do a book." So the next day I called Marie and said, "Do you happen to know Rhonda Byrne's phone number?" She gave it to us. We called Rhonda Byrne. Rhonda said, "I'm in Santa Monica today. Fly down tomorrow. Let's talk." We shook hands. 6 months later, the book.
Wow.
And along the way, my wife, I'm blessed. I'm celebrating my 1000th anniversary today. 1,000 days we've been married. Michelle and I were with the producers of The Secret going to the first screening. Maybe it was the only public screening that they did. It was near Lake Tahoe. And Michelle was the marketing director at our company, Beyond Words Publishing. And Michelle turned to one of the executives and said, "I've had a lot of people ask if we could sell, a lot of bookstores asking if they could buy The Secret DVD from us." So Michelle asked, and this is, you've heard, Laurel said it, you have, it's your chance, is to ask. So she asked the producer of The Secret, "Would you allow us to buy DVDs from you and sell them to bookstores?" And he said, "You mean you would do that?" Now, when opportunity comes, it's important to ask.
How many of those DVDs did you sell?
Michelle by herself sold 500,000.
Wow.
I let her buy 50 initially, and that lasted an hour. And then she came to me and said, she thought I was crazy. So I said, "Okay, we'll buy 100. And it wasn't long before we were selling them 10,000 at a time. So opportunities, some of you may have heard me say this, that opportunities are like garage sales. Just have to watch for the signs. There's one around every corner. And when opportunities come to you, take a risk, ask the question, walk through the door. I stand in possibility. My whole life, I'm knee-deep in it, sometimes up to my shoulders in it, and I'm not afraid to take a risk.
And you've also come from times where the publishing company was kind of having some challenges. I mean, massive, major challenges. So why don't you share everyone the story with your little attorney business?
Well, challenges would be an understatement. In the past 4 or 5 years, I'm sure if I asked for a raise of hands, how many of you have faced any type of financial challenge in the last 4 or 5 years? In 1983, when we started Beyond Words Publishing, we produced the 2 most award-winning photographic books that had ever been done in history, and we created $2 million in debt. And through a series of seemingly random circumstances, we managed to produce twice as many books as we had orders for, and then we had $2 million to pay back, and really no prognosis of how we would do that. We loaded books in our car, we drove through the state of Oregon, the state of California, selling them bookstore to bookstore, but it wasn't enough. And so for the next 20 years, until 2003, I was in debt, and I spent at least half of every day talking to creditors.
Wait, half of every day?
At least half of every day.
Wow.
And I went to banks, I applied to 26 banks and got turned down by every one of them. And finally, at first I cried. I thought, we're good people and we make good books. But the banks, they looked at our debt load and they didn't want to work with us. And so I learned a phrase which was next. I would just say to my partner, next. Because I didn't make it mean anything. I knew who we were. And if somehow the bank didn't,
so you did not give energy to the negative?
I did not give energy to the negative at all. And finally, my attorney and accountant, after about 17 years, said, this is crazy for you and your business partner to have to do this all the time. I recommend that you meet with this gentleman. He's a bankruptcy attorney, and I've arranged an appointment for you. And so we went. And the attorney said, after looking at our financial statement, you're going to have to really bankrupt. You're going to wipe out the debts, but you're going to have to bankrupt your family who've loaned you money. You're going to lose your home. You'll lose your business. And by the way, I need a $30,000 retainer to help you. And so we thanked and walked out of the room. And I looked at my business partner and said, if we had $30,000, I have people that offered me 10 cents on the dollar if I would pay them that and wipe out the debt. So I thought, gee, I could pay off $300,000 in debt. I could still have $1.7 million to go. I'd be on the way. And what I did was, our mission statement as a company is inspired to integrity. When you have a mission statement like that, if something is out of integrity, it comes right up in your face every day. And so I talked to everybody that called me, and I also did my best to pay a little bit, as we could, to everybody. Thank you. So it took time, took a long time, but in 2003, in January of 2003, our banker, at that point, we got an SBA loan. The 27th banker said yes. A bank here in California, Moreno Valley, called Valley Bank, I think. Yeah, Valley Bank. And so the banker said to me, and the landlord of where we were paying rent in our offices said, we're going to let you not pay any money to us for a year, because with cash flow, you should be able to produce more books, and you should be able to turn things around. So that was amazing. I don't know if banks would do that today, but they did it then. By November of 2003, we had generated quite a bit of cash flow, and we weren't there. And what they had told me was, by January 1, if we hadn't paid them, they were going to shut us down, close down our business. Another publisher, out of the blue, came to me and said, we'd like to license 24 of your books at $6,000 each for a 7-year period and produce our own edition of those books. That was exactly how much money we owed the bank. So you've heard vision boards talked about, and they're in The Secret. John Asseroff did the vision board in The Secret. I highly recommend doing a vision board. When this event is over, go home and do a vision board.
Actually, we keep talking. We're going to do that today. Go ahead.
So on January 1, 2004, I woke up and I knew in every cell of my being that life was different. It was struggle was done. I knew struggle. I could have taught a college course. I have 2 PhDs in struggle. I was now ready for the next phase of life in my life, and that was abundance. And so in March of 2004, What the Belief Do We Know came out. Dr. Emoto's book came out. And I had written on my vision board, where to find $1 million you never knew you had. And by August or September of 2004, we had $1 million from Dr. Emoto's book.
And from this statement of what you just did, we got great news. Because we got donated today a vision board for Secret Knock, our very first one, with that $1 million he's talking about represented and put it right here in the embroidered. And later on, what we're going to do is bring out a bunch of magazines and clippings that you're going to be able to take and actually make of your own. And I want you to pin this to the board. And when we leave here tomorrow, I'll put this up as my office, and this will become the first ever Secret Knock vision board, thanks to that idea of Richard Cohn. And I'd like to put a round of applause for the woman who put this together. Would you stand up real quick? Where are you? Give it up for her right there. Very, very much. For us, but she also did the embroidery for my wife's wedding dress, just so you know. So for someone that you definitely want to get to know. But we did this in honor of what you've been talking about. So I want you to get promise to chip in and put this together for us. Yes?
Yeah.
All right, keep going.
So is charity. And I've talked about, to Greg, I've talked about the power of persistence and staying the course. Not everyone would do 20 years of debt and stay that course, and I did. There was really no light at the end of the tunnel that I could see, and no prognosis, as I said, that we'd ever be able to pay it back. And we just kept going and did the best we could.
What gave you that spark? I mean, what made you keep pushing on when things were so challenging?
I think that it's probably based, Greg, on something that I had within me. Ever since I was a little boy, I wanted to do something on my own. And for those of you who know Joseph Campbell, you know that in the hero's journey, the heroine's journey, you get a call, you feel something. Either, I mean, it could actually be a call, or someone tells you, you'd be really good at this, you could do this. And I just had this desire inside myself to do something. I didn't have inside me a desire to fail. And I lived by 3 words: hope, faith, and conviction.
Wow.
Hope, when I was 10 years old, and we were playing in the state championship softball tournament, and I got up to bat. My whole team batted all the way around. I struck out. They batted around again. I struck out. Now I'm in the on-deck circle, and I'm crying because I didn't want to go through life remembering that I had struck out all 3 times. Fortunately, the guy ahead of me, I was just praying, he struck out. So prayer helps. So with hope, there's, I talk about the power of persistence, the power of prayer. Enroll the universe. I pray every day, and coupled with that prayer is a huge gratitude component. Even when things were not going well, and I had, really nothing happening that I felt all that great about, I still was grateful. Grateful to be alive on this earthly plane of demonstration. Grateful to have the opportunity to experience life and to learn everything that I was learning along the way. And I do that till this day.
Yeah, so this is an opportunity to actually ask this man some questions. Who here would like to ask Richard Cohn something? Yes? Speak up and roll out.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. This is such an honor to be with you. The speaker changed my life. My first introduction to transformation and mindset. I'm wondering about any backlash you received
I personally, actually, in our company, did not receive any. I know that some people did. I think Rhonda did. I was pleasantly surprised even about a month ago. Steve Harvey, who's the host of Family Feud, and he has another show, he stood up on television and he was saying, I really believe in personal growth. I've studied all kinds of books in my life, and there's one book that made a difference for me like no other book. And he holds up a copy of The Secret. And he then goes on to explain about The Secret, about ask, believe, receive, about all the elements of The Secret. And then at the end of it, he said, The Secret is better than the Bible. Now, I would think there might be some backlash for that. And
hold on a second. Lightning might strike. I'm going to move over here.
But he said, so after that, the secret film producers called me and they said, this is like 2007 again. The book just took off. When we were talking about, or when Greg was talking about New York Times bestsellers and Michael was talking about it, The Secret, I think it's 381 weeks or something like that it's been on the New York Times. Right now it's down off of it right at the moment, but when Steve Harvey said that, it went right back up again.
So let's go from this. So you went through challenge, struggle, couldn't afford to file bankruptcy, $2 million in debt. As soon as The Secret did take off in one calendar year, it completely changed your life.
It did.
You went literally from broke to a multi-millionaire personally.
Yes.
And that had to be, how did you handle that? I mean, that had to be such an interesting moment, a juxtaposition to go from, handling all those phone calls from people wanting, money from you to wanting quality of your time. I mean, you went from the old thing from zero to hero type of feeling. How did you handle it?
It actually wasn't hard. I didn't mean that facetiously. Actually, it sounds like I said that, but I didn't really mean it that way. It wasn't hard from the standpoint that who you see here today is who I was when I was $2 million in debt. And when that tap of abundance turns on, I mean, it's like something you watch and it's just amazing. You can't turn it off. I mean, I looked at it and it just kept coming and kept coming. And The Secret is now sold, I think, 23 million copies worldwide and still selling tremendously. The film is sold about 6 million, the audio version over 1 million.
And then The Power.
And then The Power, and then The Magic. And we're blessed that Simon Schuster was our partner. The first book we brought them in that partnership was The Secret. So it altered them also. It altered our
Everyone loves a winner. Any other questions for him? This is your opportunity. Yes?
What do you know now that you wish you knew back when you started your career?
I certainly know that thought is creative. And I've seen it, I mean, we live our lives that way, the law of attraction and action. If some of you are familiar with Esther Hicks and Abraham, Abraham talks about how when you speak a thought, when you write a word, when you put something out that you want in life, there's something that's called vibrational escrow. And those thoughts just literally sit with you. You could ask for anything that you wanted. You could hope for anything that you wanted. And it will just stay with you as an unfulfilled promise until you are a vibrational match for what you want. And so learning that alone helped me tremendously. And I'm very careful about what I say, what I think. I know there are people that wonder why their cars are covered with bird doo-doo. And if you listen to what they say, S-H-I-T is a common expression that comes out. So,
yes.
Where do you want to go? Because we've been talking about past.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you want to go next? What's next on your horizon? Where are you going next?
I would recommend, if you haven't, that you each take some time and write out what your purpose in life is. My purpose in life is to help source and disseminate information that can help make a difference in people's lives. I could easily retire. I'm chronologically over retirement age, and I'm having more fun and enjoying life more than I ever have, and finding wonderful, wonderful material. And the other important thing is to be a nonstop learner. Someone said to me once, "You never learn less." And I don't have a Facebook page myself. I have employees that do that for our company, and tweeting, and so I also want to learn all of the new technologies and hire great minds who know how to do these kinds of things that can help bring information in the way people want to receive it. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to contribute to the box. A total of 52 spiritual, metaphysical films that have great teaching tools in them and great lessons, and so there'll be one for every week, and so I will send that.
What's the value of that?
That would be about $1,200.
Nice. Very nice. And that's awesome. By the way, just to give you a heads up, I need to get ready to cue Jim's introduction. So make sure you're getting ready for that. Yes.
Richard, you seem like an extremely humble man. I really appreciate that. Through your struggles, looking back now, are you thankful for going through those struggles? I mean, would you have changed that all? Would you rather gone straight to success, or are you glad for the struggles that you went through?
I want to answer that question for you. As soon as the success started coming, yes, he bought a house in Beverly Hills. You know, he went up there to do that. However, him and Michelle spent all their weekends going to garage sales and going to flea markets, and they furnished their entire house with stuff that they bought hunting. It was always the chase and the progress and the looking of the appreciation of beauty, of giving life to something that something else was going to throw away. I always thought that was one of the most humbling things, because that's not just something that people talk about, you actually live that life.
Well, we do. I had, by employment background, I'd been in the family furniture business, retail furniture business, and manufacturing furniture business. So for me to go to a garage sale to buy something, it just would have never happened, because I could get from the furniture store anything I wanted. And then my lovely bride, Michelle, took me to a garage sale, and I was fascinated. It became really almost a social experiment to see what life was like for people, what they were giving away, throwing away. And I also looked at books. And in 4 years in Los Angeles, I went to 6,000 garage sales. We found 4 copies of The Secret, and I bought them. And what that said to me is, this is a book that people keep, and it has value for them, because it didn't show up. And in answer to your question, I wouldn't trade any of the experience that I've had. I've learned so much in life from that. Learned about the strength that I have as a human being, and learned about the caring of others, because it took, if you have 3 companies that all don't like you and you owe them money, they can actually put you out of business. They can force you into bankruptcy. But nobody did. Instead, they all agreed to work with us. Some of them forgave part of the debt. So it is, I'm blessed to be here today, to be able to share what I've learned, and all those people along the way who helped me. It made a huge difference for me.
Okay, one last question. Yes.
When you were in the survival mode for so many years, what kept you going? Was it an unwillingness to fail, or because you have hope that prosperity or being a successful couple would be?
Well, I mentioned the 3 words, hope, faith, and conviction. And it was a combination of all 3. I had hoped that I could start a business and do it successfully. I had faith that I had the skills and tools and that I would be open to learning, and I had the conviction to stay the course and see it through. Along the way, a lot of people helped me. My mother, when I couldn't make payroll, she was 88 years old, would walk with her cane across to the bank, deposit money so that I could make payroll. Another publisher got cash on his Visa card and gave it to me so we could make payroll. That other publisher I mentioned who stepped up and bought all of the rights to our books for a period of time. So there's been a lot of divine intervention in my life, a lot of universal support, and so a lot of prayer. And I'm here because as a result of all of those things combining into one.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Christian Cohn.